Well, welcome to the British Shooting Show 2020. And for the first of our podcasts, we are offering you Love Island. Yes, do you know Love Island? Do you hate Love Island? And more importantly, Ollie Williams. Ollie on Love Island was, as far as we could tell, stripped naked and dragged over hot coals by the media. And he's going to tell us that story now.
That's an understatement, I think.
Well, you must have felt pretty bruised after all that.
I mean, to be honest with you, when you're in there, you don't know about anything going on in the outside.
Are you completely
You're
cut off?
completely unaware. So, a lot of people were speculating, well, did you leave because of the stuff going on at home, whatever. But you honestly, you're completely cut off from it. When I came out, as far as I was concerned, it was going to be this romantic gesture towards, Laura, who's
sitting just next to us, but is not taking part. Okay,
Yeah,
we're going to have to imagine Laura.
And anyway, so I came out, and then suddenly they sort of turned around and was like, well, and they understated it massively, which didn't really help. And they said, it's just a couple of small press stories that were about you, surrounding your hunting background. I was like, well, I was half expecting that to come out. Was it pheasant shooting? And they were like, well, your stuff you did in Africa. And I was like, right, okay. Anyway, so that was the end of it. They then chucked me on a flight, flew me back, and I got back, and my manager, who is the ex-editor of The Sun, I then realised it was who actually was just had then become my manager. So I was like, right, if he's on board, then probably and sure enough, front page of every newspaper for basically 3 days.
How much control over this did you feel you had?
I never felt control of the media, because they'd be like, we found another photo, we found another hunting, story of him, and they'd spin that the next day, and so I never felt in control of them, but I never felt out of control of myself in terms of I had a great team around me, my family were fantastic, and my manager was obviously invaluable, and having the knowledge of the tabloids he did, so we managed to sort of get it on side within a week. I did a statement about it, obviously it's all conservation, sustainable hunting, which, as we all know, is
you did that. I mean, it is a crucial part of it, but it looks a bit like a kind of sop to the antes in a way. I mean, there were a couple of things about it which I felt could have been handled better.
It would I didn't want to go too strong. I mean, because it was so raw, and whether we like it or not, we are in the minority.
Yes.
And there was a huge. I mean, I was a hate figure, being honest. And still to an extent am.
You were, and part of that. There's another question I have to ask you. Is there was a pretty foul Twitter account called Love Island Ollie,
that was fake.
That was fake,
completely
wasn't it?
fake. Yeah.
And I mean, that seemed to kind of characterise everything that they wanted to believe.
Yeah, of course.
The antis wanted to believe.
Yeah, so I got as many mates as I could on board as fast as possible to go. We eventually got it removed after about 24 hours, but it got several thousand retweets and things, and basically just all sorts of horrible tweets and things pretending to be me. Which didn't help. But then most people did realise it was fake, because my official account was listed.
And you have to be sort of verified. Okay, so just for people who don't really understand Twitter, can you just talk through that? So are there people out there who kind of latch on to fame and just for the badness of it?
100%. I mean, I've got the point of you get a sort of a verified blue tick, if you like, on most real big accounts with decent following, because people want to then fake them and get on the bandwagon, if you know what I mean. So they'll fake them, and so Instagram and Twitter just say, right, no, this is the real account. There's his tick, and so on and so forth. So that was an ideal, having that going on as well.
Yeah.
It was sort of keeping the head under the parapet. And when you say, it did come across a bit of a sop to the antes, and I wasn't necessarily really 100% happy with the statement. But it was, if you were being PC, pandering to everybody, that was the best statement we could have put out. And it was the truth, of course, but it was the best we could have. We didn't want to go too hard line on it. We just go on the offensive.
You're in a very difficult position. I mean, they did call you out on it, and they said, really, did you hunt that animal because you loved it?
Yeah, of course.
And you did. I mean, that must have been a little bit uncomfortable, because.
I mean, but then it came to the extent where I was being honest, because it was just like, you say you love animals, and you like to conserve them, but we can't possibly understand how killing one animal benefits the rest of them. It's the old Packhams seem to just drill on about that, which doesn't really make any sense.
So this is the problem, and we have this kind of the problem with the media looking at things in isolation all the time. You have just been through the kind of the sharpest, rawest end of that.
100%.
And you seem to me to be a perfectly charming, reasonable kind of shooting sort of person who I would meet anywhere, and you just kind of almost got caught out, but. You're through it now. I mean, do you feel you've sort of learnt something from this?
I mean, people ask me, in hindsight of all the stories and everything that come out about you, would you have still done it if you could have said it? And I said, yeah, and the answer is yes. It was a great experience, one of the first things you said to me this morning was, I'm going to ask you, why the hell did you do it in the first place? Was because I got approached by this big glitz glam, amazing show that everyone my age basically watches, and said, do you want to be on it? And I thought,
why would I not?
And I did weigh up the opportunity. I did weigh up the bad points and the good points. That yes, my hunting background could come out. I'm half expecting it too. But obviously I wasn't expecting the backlash that it really got.
You thought it would be something about pheasant shooting, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, that's interestingly, saying that, being really involved with the tabloids, being really involved with the whole media shitstorm, excuse my French, I'm not sure.
That is what it was like.
Yeah, is basically, suddenly I realised that there's not actually a massive amount of negativity towards pheasant shooting at the moment.
No.
Because there were photos of me shooting pheasants, partridges, etc. And and people were open about that before the other hunting stuff came out. Yes, he shoots, and there was nothing about that. There was no.
I think it depends on how you look at it. I mean, if that's all that they had, and there were some hardline antis who were trying to knock you off.
AREs, extremists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we'll come on to what happened afterwards in a sec. But I mean, in that situation, if they hadn't had the African big game photographs to look at, then they would have had.
They probably would have gone a bit more at the pheasants.
Yeah, and I mean, pheasants are a problem. But I think one thing you sort of pointed out earlier on is we're a minority. But I mean, did you not at any stage feel that the antis who were driving this were also a minority?
100%. I mean, you're looking at the population of the UK, for example. As 100%, you've got probably, I'd say there's 20, 25%. I don't know, you probably know the stats better than me in terms of how many people are directly involved with field sports. But you've got that group, which is, thank you very much. And it was
just say Meredith's just brought some coffee. Thank you so much.
Lifesaver. And that group is, the field sports group is infinitely larger than the anti-group, but they are just that much more extreme and vocal. Whereas we're respectable people. We're not going to go start. Well,
we've got gun licenses. We can't be anything but respectable.
Exactly.
Okay, so the statistic I always like in this particular world is the National Trust had a vote on trail hunting, which is pretty innocent and doesn't involve the death of foxes except by accident. Okay, so 1% of the National Trust voted very firmly in favour of that, and 1% voted very firmly against, and 98% do not care. No. And I think that sort of tells the story mostly. Yeah. All right, I've got to, for the sake of people, and you'll have to sort of imagine some people who don't know what Love Island is.
Of course, no. I didn't really know what it is when I went on. That's part of the issue.
So when you sign up for this thing, you kind of go into a bubble, don't you? And you I don't know, is there some sort of induction? You go to South Africa. Tell me about all the sort of hilarious, all that stuff.
So basically, you go into a lockdown about 10 days before you go into the villa, if you like. And that basically is, you're not allowed your phone. You're not allowed, because that's when they started doing the press releases. And it's not, the point is you don't know what anyone's saying about you at home. You just know that you're genuine, it's you, and you go in.
How many of you are there?
There was five boys, 5 girls initially, and then 2 girls came in the evening. So 7 girls, 5 boys. So you have 12 of you 12. Of your age not allowed to use your phone. How many attempted suicides were there? No, the trouble is, like, people, because the first few days I think was, I'd not bothered, because Cornwall, you'd be lucky if you get 1 bar signal, let alone 4G. But I think a couple of them did struggle, but you sort of, that sort of withdrawal phase is the lockdown phase. So when you're in the villa, you forget about it, phones.
You really do, and it's a kind of a job, isn't it? I mean, you are there to win a competition, aren't you? And a pretty visceral competition. So for those who don't understand Love Island, what's a competition? What do you have to do?
The point is, you have to couple up with someone in there. Normally it's heterosexual relationships, I don't think it's bendy. And it's, you go in there and you all, basically fight one another, not literally, but for the various girls, boys, and.
I mean, I've got children who are addicted to it, and the kind of the catchiness and all that sort of thing.
It's good fun. So you go in there, you're put into challenges, you basically challenge each relationship, which is very fresh and raw, obviously, and throughout 6 weeks. Yeah. And basically, at the end of it, one couple is voted by the public to be the best couple, and they win. One person in the couple wins 50 grand.
Wow, so it's worth winning.
And so one person wins it, but then they have the opportunity to split or steal. Have you seen Golden Balls? Remember Golden Balls?
Yeah, yes.
It's basically a 6-week-long episode of Golden Balls. Split or steal at the end. No one's stolen it yet. I don't think they will, because
That's
You've
fantastic. Yes.
You want to be successful in this relationship. The first thing you do is just steal 25 grand from the other person. It's not the best start.
I just look back to the innocent days of blind date. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of a weird blind date. I mean, walking out of the, doing your first walkout when you.
What's a walkout?
So basically, all the girls line out and they choose the guys as they come down the stairs.
Oh,
they step forward. Anyway, that was absolutely harrowing in terms of.
It's absolutely harrowing.
Oh, it was so scary. I mean, I've played rugby at a relatively decent level, and I've never been so scared of that in a training before a game. You know, honestly, I was like, crikey.
It's the worst kind of line. Okay, we might have to have a little breather now because I think we're going to get a little bit of a noise. It was one of the advantages of doing a podcast from the British shooting show.
Yeah.
Oh, he stopped. Thank goodness for that. We're okay.
Back in.
He may come back in a minute. All right, so. You also have a peculiar advantage over all the other contestants in that you scarcely made it to first base. You were on an airplane home very quickly. So you actually got to see the rest of the programme.
Yes, I did. I mean, I weirdly enough, I realised quite early on that going on the show was potentially my heart simply lay elsewhere. Sorry.
Well, yeah, can we just clear this one up?
Yeah.
Absolutely straightforward.
Yes.
So you came off the show because of Laura, who is sitting within coffee throwing distance of me. So
yeah,
jolly
a little bit careful. Yeah, still hot as well.
And you had, but hey, you guys are young. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's you don't lock it down till you're married. But you have you also have this huge scandal, which perhaps you weren't aware of how big it was at the time.
Zero idea.
Going on and probably people making decisions for you at any stage at ITV. Did the producers say?
They don't literally tell you what to say, but they guide you.
Okay, so were you guided into saying, right, I'm coming home because of Laura, or
No.
that was totally from the heart. That was totally true.
I honestly, I went into the beach hut room, which is the little diary room. And I said, guys, I don't think it's the right place to be. And they're like, why? And they actually were trying to encourage me to sort of stay on.
And you had no clue that any of this stuff was going on at the time.
Not literally
okay,
until
right. This is a bit I think we don't quite understand.
That's what a lot of people are also, I think, struggling with, because they're like, well, surely, it couldn't have made any sense that it seems so, perfect that it lined up that you left when these photos of you hunting in Africa came out. That's the reason you left.
It does look like
there
that.
was exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I completely see that. There's a petition which had however many thousand. I mean, the only good thing is I can turn around and say I'm the most controversial Love Islander of all
You
time.
are, absolutely. You win
So
that.
I'll take that mantle.
I'll take that.
I'll wear it proudly.
But I mean, the guys here at the British Shooting Show, they're all very, very pro shooting. In a way, it looked like you sort of presented an argument and lost. I mean, I wouldn't be amazingly surprised if people didn't come and kind of boo you here, because in terms of media perception, that's what happened. I know that's not what happened, but that's what it looks like.
I am now. It's the key for me at the time coming out is letting it settle down, because I could not go on the offensive with the 95% of the country
not a chance, no.
trying to basically kill me.
No, that's right. Well, unless you were Donald Trump.
Yeah, quite
luckily
right.
you're not.
So I mean, and that was where we'll be right back after this short commercial break.
A word from our sponsors. Yeah. Oh, he stopped. Good. Yeah. So okay, I get that. All right. So let's go from the point where they fly you home,
Yes.
and then things start getting nasty. Personally, don't they?
So
What
I
happened next?
got back and I realised that ITV took me through the private terminal at Heathrow, and I realised something wasn't quite right, because normally, and I was like, well, why are we going through here, guys? And I was like, well, there's quite a few people laying for blood outside Terminal 3.
Blimey. Were there actually
AREs and obviously the PAPs and everything outside there.
Happens.
And then, so we then sent a dummy car off to take them away, but then they were followed by God knows who, and I went off in a different car.
Did you get any sense that these were real animal rights activists who have got time to spend sitting around in airports waiting for you to land, or were they kind of put up?
There were definitely AREs at the airport. I was told, because we sent a guy through first, and we actually went around and.
Okay.
So.
All right. So you get out of the airport and you head home to Cornwall.
I went to an undisclosed location.
Oh, an undisclosed location.
Yeah, because we got home and there was people waiting outside the vicarage back at home.
Oh, they were already there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you're basically taken until they kind of get too cold to stay and they don't like the outdoors much.
Yeah, exactly. And then they went home.
So when did you get home?
About 10 days after I landed.
Really? And and you met your parents?
My parents actually met me off the plane, basically, or at the undisclosed location. So that's where, and then it was sort of after that, I then let everything settle down. We then had a meeting with everybody, worked out how we were going to approach the situation.
Including the production company?
No.
Well, they were out by this
ITV,
stage.
at this point, we weren't sure whether ITV could actually because they basically leaked the fact that I was leaving the show when they said they weren't going to.
Ooh,
got
yes,
out,
they could be quite
got out of
nasty
production.
like
So we were
that,
like, how much can we tell them? You know, this.
yeah,
this.
sure.
So, but I mean, at this point, I was getting people were throwing money at me to tell them the story.
Of
The
course.
amount of press companies that were just like, we will pay you X, Y, and Z to do this, and I was like,
you were a very, very hot story.
and I was just like, I need to just let this settle down. So we then did the statement, which, I mean, a lot of people here might think was soft and like you say, pandering to the antis.
No, well, it's only in the context of what happened at the time.
But they say exactly context is key, and it was seeing that. Hang on, this is actually a bit of a maelstrom of.
I mean, to your credit, you got in that really solid right punch that hunting is about conservation.
Of course.
It might contextually it might not have looked amazing, but once again, and it's a very difficult one to put across. So you leave it all the media power you had at that stage to that. So all credit to you for that. Right, you go home.
Yes.
And have you met up with Laura at this stage?
No. So yeah, we met, and weirdly enough, we actually watched my exit interview episode together. So that was the weirdest sort of thing, because obviously I'd flown home, and because you're obviously 36 hours behind the show filming.
Yes.
So I managed to catch up with it and watch it basically when everybody else watched it.
So you're actually sitting in the same room together.
Yeah, same room with 10 other people, which is quite.
Saves you.
So I was just there, my head around, I was like, this is so cringe, and to be fair, it's quite nice to be able to.
She is smiling. Okay.
I think is it grimace or is it a smile? We'll call it a smile.
I think it's a smile. Okay, well that's good. Now, things took a turn for the worse as far as the antis are concerned, didn't they? What happened next?
So then, obviously, I just then got control of my phone, opened my phone, and it basically thousands and thousands of messages.
What on Facebook?
Yeah, I didn't have Facebook at this point.
Had they got hold of your phone number?
No, luckily. That was one thing I was sort of half hoping. They got hold of my home address.
Yeah.
So we had death threats left all over the voicemails at home.
Yeah.
On the National Trust phones as well.
Right, yes.
And also, obviously, then hate mail sent to the house. But then the main thing was Instagram and Twitter. It was just,
They want you dead.
I'd say hundreds of thousands of messages.
Yeah, I can totally believe that. They simply want you dead. And what's so strange about it is, we get about a dozen death threats every month. They don't carry them out, you know. But it's that sort of sense of signalling their virtue by saying, I want to murder somebody.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
The weirdest thing is, you get people, they're on a phone and they just think, this Love Island caricature, if you like. That's what I think that's meant.
Yeah.
Essentially, they see it as a cartoon character.
Yeah, well, you are sort of.
Exactly.
We're going to talk about your hair in a minute, all right?
We'll get there. But the real people behind these things. I've spoken to a couple of the guys that come out, and they're the same. They've done nothing in as far as the general public's concerned, as bad as my press stories. They just dump someone on the show, and they're getting death threats.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? It's like the people are taking these things too seriously.
Like so, you're not going to. How seriously can these death threats be taken?
Generally not.
Yeah.
Okay, so but you have got people outside the house itself, haven't you? For a while.
Yeah.
What was the local police reaction to that?
Devon Cornwall police were brilliant. They were brilliant. So they actually, they were straight on top of it. Really, really supportive. Constantly ringing me. There's a couple of ongoing investigations actually about various death threats.
And the kind of people who go to kind of parade themselves outside your house, have they come all the way down from London for it, or Bristol, or are they?
I wasn't in the area when it was happening. I mean, it did help. There were 5 very hungry Labradors roaming the grounds at all times, so I don't think that sort of kept them off.
Oh, the Williams attack Labradors.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah. They're much worse than their bite, I'm sure. But it's still when there's 5 of them coming at you, barking their heads off, and kind of keep you on the road, main road, certainly. So.
Right, let's talk about your sporting future. I mean,
yes.
Love Island has been an event, and it's been an amazing. It's kind of launched you in a way.
Of course, what
do you want to do next?
I definitely, I'm said from the beginning, I'm a passionate conservationist, and conservation is a massive.
Is the context right for you to say that? You've got to be careful. Last time you said that, you got in lots of trouble.
Quite right. But in no way. Let me just get this disclaimer in. No. Of course. I've always been a passionate conservationist, and
we are. Hunters and shooters are. That's
the crazy thing. I tell people, they don't really understand. I'm like, at the end of the day, we all love hunting, shooting. If we didn't look after these animals, we'd no longer be able to hunt them because they would just be either too scarce to justify, or even, God forbid, disappear altogether.
And in Africa, unfortunately, for people who go on photographs, as far as they can't afford. It's only the hunters who can afford it.
And in rural areas like Mozambique, where I was working, basically not a single dollar for anti-poaching, conservation, keeping the wild areas wild, feeding them so they don't have to go and hunt for meat. not a single dollar of that comes from anywhere else but hunting, because these sort of obscure areas, you know, in the CAR, you know, Tanzania, these remote areas which people aren't going to go 6-7 flights in dodgy helicopters to go on a photographic safari. It just doesn't happen.
They're not the Kruger, they're not the Mara.
No.
People don't go there.
No.
You're clearly very passionate about Africa. I mean, is that where you see part of your future?
I'm certainly. I mean, eventually, yeah. I think that is inevitably. You know, I think it's the old adage is once you've gone there, you sort of catch a bit of a bug. And whether it be safari, it's just, you know, it's the thunderstorms, it's the huge open area, it's the incredible animals, it's the incredible wildlife, it's everything about it. It's just
actually it's strange. Africa, in terms of a place, it does wilderness very well, it does wildlife very well. Lots of reasons people visit countries though. I mean, it does things like spirituality and politics, those sorts of things, very badly. You know.
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you go. I mean, certainly when the area I did, there's literally people out there that have, you know, basically tribal still. They live in very much mud huts. They're fed very much by what the conservation hunts give them. So I think last year with the place it was 66 tons of meat they gave
extraordinary, yeah.
To basically a local community. Which, if that meat wasn't there, they'd be out poaching the animals for themselves, but with no idea the impact they were having.
Unregulated.
Exactly.
That's the problem. Okay, so do you see? I mean, are you going to go into the world of field sports? Do you think, in some form?
I think certainly. I mean, I've had a couple of sort of opportunities here and there. You know, I'd definitely be very, very excited and keen to do something, because, you know, at the end of the day, if you're doing something you love, it's not really going to come across as a job, if you like. But I'd certainly, if I could do something with anything in my platform, it'd be.
I've got real trouble persuading people that Fieldsports Channel is a job. You know, I run Fieldsports Channel. Yeah, it is a job. Really. Okay, well, look, I wish you the very, very best of luck with that. I'm sure it's going to be a success. You just seem to be far more charming than the monster that the tabloids painted. You'll be delighted to hear.
Aren't we all?
And I hope we do some filming together and
yeah, very, very keen for it.
Push you out of the world stage.
Sorry, I thought you were going for a handshake there, but very keen for it. Yeah,
lovely, brilliant.
Excellent.
Thank you, Ollie.
Cheers, Charlie.